What's going on, guys? So on Sunday, I will be recording a video reacting to Pittsburgh Steelers versus Buffalo Bills game, talking about some takeaways from the game, who played well, who didn't, stuff we should know looking forward. But right now, I do want to do a bit of a draft primer for Pittsburgh before the week, because YouTube tends to reward you for uploading consistently, and I don't really upload consistently at all. Except I just put videos out on Saturday, which is usually a Clemson football review, and then on Sunday, which is a Pittsburgh Steelers review. So hopefully, uploading 3 days in a row here will put me in the YouTube algorithm's good graces. But anyways, let's just get right into it. It's Pittsburgh right now using reverse Super Bowl odds, which is what a lot of people use to build out the draft numbers in their mock drafts. Pittsburgh could be picking as high as 5th or as low as 9th because they're tied with a couple of teams according to Bet MGM for Super Bowl odds. They're at the very bottom of the list. I'm inclined to think they're picking closer to the 9 to 10 range than they are the 5 to 6 range, which can have some pretty high impacts in terms of the draft stats, because usually there's going to be 5 or 6 real blue chip players in the draft. And then there's a couple of guys who you like, but don't really consider were top 5 picks or top 10 picks, who sometimes just slide into the back end of the top 10. But we're going to look at right now, assuming Pittsburgh has somewhere in that 9 to 12 range, I'll say, in terms of a draft pick. Because right now, this is a team's not playing that well, and you might be upset hearing that. But you have to consider our depth, our injury issues. Kenny Pickett's going to come in and energize the team. I have no doubt about that. But we're playing Buffalo, Tampa Bay, Philadelphia, Miami in the next couple of weeks. It's not going to be pretty unless Kenny Pickett comes out and lights the world on fire, which I'm not really going to bet on, because I did do his draft profiling and did do a study on him last year, and I was not too hyper about him going to the draft. But anyway, let's say we're picking in that 9 to 12 range. We can go as low as 15 in the draft, or if you want to make yourself feel a little bit better. But right away, I'm thinking about cornerback help. Our corner situation has not been fantastic. It was pretty good for a little while there when we had Joe Hayden, we had Mike Hilton, we had some guys who were playing at a high level, and it just is not like Steven Nelson was there for a year or two. But right now, it's not where it needs to be. Ahkello Witherspoon, Levi Wallace, these guys are career backups in most teams. Arthur Mallett, no offense, I don't really love him playing a significant role in this defense. And Cam Sutton, I do think, can be a nice piece moving forward and continuing on with the team. I prefer having him playing in the slot, frankly. I don't want him playing outside corner. And he does split time currently this year between the slot and cornerback, outside corner role. About 86 snaps in the slot this year, about 200 at outside corner. I prefer to spend all his time in the slot, frankly. I just think that's his best role. So we're looking at outside corners. The one everyone's going to talk about is Kelee Ringo. He's a lot of people's top corner right now. Second-year starter from Georgia, missed almost most of 2020 with an injury, but he was amazing last year. His first action on the field, he's super athletic, he's rangy, got long arms. There are some questions in terms of his development, in terms of just his play recognition and stuff like that. There's some, I would call it maturity, not mentally, not in terms of off the field maturity issues, but in terms of on the field maturity issues, and just kind of building up that pool of experience you can pull from and become more of a polished player. He needs to be more polished, is what I'm trying to say. But Ringo has a shot to go before this point, before Pittsburgh will be picking, and frankly, I don't even know if he's going to finish the year as CB1. I know a guy everyone's going to like to hear, Joey Porter Jr., Penn State. Joey Porter, obviously a all-pro linebacker for Pittsburgh for a long time. Really big piece of the Super Bowl we won back in the early 2000s. That defense was awesome. And he had plenty of sacks and made a big impact in Pittsburgh, and was a coach for us for a little while as well. His son is one of the most physically gifted corners in this class. And he's got ridiculous arm length, which is obviously so important for a corner and press coverage in terms of playing at the catch point. The issue is he does draw a lot of penalties. And again, he has not really built up the refinement you would want from a cornerback who you're going to throw out there and put out as the day one starter. That being said, this is his best season so far, and it's by far his best season right now. So I do think there's a chance Joey Porter Jr. goes in the first round and maybe falls to a situation where Pittsburgh's picking in the middle of the first round and Joey Porter's on the board, and it makes sense to go and get him. The other cornerback is out there I don't really think Pittsburgh will want, but it's certainly someone we have to consider. Cam Smith, cornerback from South Carolina. Not a dude I've done a deep study on yet. He's the top cornerback on my big board that's coming out in probably a few days. So Cam Smith is a corner we have to keep an eye on. The one who I'm really hyped up right now, I'm really pushing for is Clark Phillips. Now, he's not an outside corner, really. He's going to be 5'9", 5'10". He's maybe 180 pounds. He's not going to be playing outside in the NFL. But this dude did just have 3 interceptions in one game last week. So he's a very, very talented player. He might actually be a better corner option than Joey Ford Jr. in terms of just a pure prospect. The issue, again, is he's going to have to play in the slot. He's not an outside corner. And again, if we can, I would like to get the outside guy that we can push Cam Sutton back into the slot. And we're talking about second-round options. I never thought I would have to mention this, but Eli Ricks, cornerback from Alabama, really looking like a second-round option at this point. He's not gotten on the field for Alabama much at all. And the issue is apparently he doesn't know the defensive playbook at Alabama. He immediately transferred from LSU to Alabama after having to deal with injuries last year. And apparently he's just not caught on at all. So who knows if he's even going to count for the draft if he has more years of eligibility. He might stay at Bama. But if he decides to declare for the draft, I think right now is someone who could get towards maybe the top of the second round, maybe lower if they have some maturity questions regarding his inability to pick up the playbook at Alabama, which is notoriously fairly difficult. But at the same time, there are plenty of good defensive backs who have learned it over the years and mastered it. Ricks, who had great film, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago at this point, no longer playing with that player. He's been banged up, dealing with injuries, can't even get on the field right now. So there's an option to get him outside the first round, which I think would be really good value considering what we know he's capable of doing at a high end. Other positions I would look at, I'm always going to be pumping the offensive line. I think left tackle with Dan Moore Jr. He's shown some improvement. The offensive line, frankly, has done better this year than I expected, although the scheme certainly helps offensively. I would still be looking for upgrades. I would not trust Mason Cole long-term at center. I would not trust Dan Moore Jr. long-term at left tackle. I do think you can roll with Kevin Dotson left guard. I do think you can roll with James Daniels. Obviously, we gave him a contract. We gave Okoro for a contract extension. I wasn't a huge fan of it at the time, and he's actually been pretty solid so far this year. And if he's going to be your third best or fourth best offensive lineman, I think you can live with that. But I do think left tackle is an area of concern. The issue is going to be there's really not many guys who I would consider taking in the first round this year, especially at the top of the first round at tackle. There really just is not. I know people are going to point to Skoronski from Northwestern. He doesn't have very long arms for a tackle. He might be a guard for next level. He's not really going to be guys going to fit Pittsburgh's scheme if he is a guard. And again, right now our guard situation with James Daniels and Kevin Dotson, you like to think it's pretty squared away. The offensive tackles you probably could take a shot at. Paris Johnson Jr. from Ohio State. And I have not gotten into the tackle class yet, so I haven't really studied too much of them to build a full prospect profile on any of these guys. But Paris Johnson Jr. from Ohio State is a guy who played guard. This is his first year playing tackle. He's doing well so far. But of course, there'll be a bit of a learning curve there, especially for him transitioning from college football, where he has so little experience playing tackle, to the NFL. Broderick Jones from Georgia is just your typical Georgia tackle, honestly. We know how they can get. I think he could be a pretty big addition if we can get someone like him on board. And he's going to be a guy whose stock's going to really fluctuate this year. Some people already view him as the top tackle in this draft class. Some people have him as a low-end first-round pick. So it's going to be a pretty big gap in terms of how people view him for the rest of the season. And then Jalen Duncan from Maryland, a guy who's more, I'll call him more of a pass-blocking oriented guy, not going to be really a mauler in the running game, not going to be the same kind of guy you might get from Broderick Jones. But again, in terms of pass protection, he's probably one of the best players in this draft class at left tackle. If we're going to finish up here, I would be remiss if we just don't talk about the edge rushers. And we don't really need an edge rusher. We've got, I'm not going to say his last name right. I know I won't, but we've got David Anina, who we signed off the Tennessee practice squad, and I already forgot how to say his name. I was a big fan of him coming out of Houston last year. We have, obviously, T.J. Watt, who's dealing with injuries right now. Alex Highsmith, who's been really good. So we really don't need to deal with the edge rusher position immediately. But I would be remiss because it is a deep group of edge rushers this year. Like, we should get someone. And frankly, I don't think it's out of the question that we get someone like a Myles Murphy. If we want to get him, he doesn't really fit the scheme too much, but he can play that 3-4 defensive end. I think he can be that role, considering he's a big dude. He is really big, and he's got a lot of power. So I think you can play him in that role if you want to. If you're looking for more of just a pure outside linebacker, and if you're picking for some reason towards the middle of the first round or towards late in the first round, I would not rule out a guy like a Tyree Wilson or Nolan Smith, Isaiah Foskey, some guys just to consider. If he looks and DK Uzoma from Kansas State, to be honest, I don't really love most of these guys as first round picks. I think Foskey can be a first rounder. I think Tyree Wilson can be a first rounder. And Noah Smith might be the best run defending outside linebacker prospect I can remember, at least. I mean, he is tremendous against the run. We're talking about a guy who can hold the point of attack against tackles without issue. He can push guards backwards. He is super strong, sturdy against the run. The issue is he just has no development as a So I don't think he's going to be a first round pick. But I do want to throw some names in there just to consider guys who could play edge rusher the first round. B.J. Gillard from LSU is another one who could play outside linebacker, who has a really deep bag of tricks already. And his brother, Azeez Ojulari, was favored to be a first round pick. Ended up being a second round pick for the Giants because there were some injury concerns there. But B.J. Ojulari is a better prospect. He's going to be a pure outside linebacker at the NFL level. And it's a dude who's a deep bag of pass rushing moves. So you can consider him if you have to. If you feel like you have the ability to make a luxury pick, you can consider someone like B.J. Ojulari. One more position I want to look at real quick here because I do want to get this uploaded. And I know probably isn't even talk about edge rusher, but I just like the edge rushing class so much. I felt like bringing it up. We probably could consider looking at interior defensive linemen. And to be honest, this class just stinks from interior defensive line. Don't even bother really. Unless you're getting, especially in the first round, unless you're going to get someone like a Jalen Carter, I really don't care. Like, I don't want to hear them talking about getting into your defensive lineman in the first round, especially because they don't offer a ton of value. Again, Jalen Carter is really the only needle mover who could go in the first round. We're going to talk about tackles, we're talking about corners, we're talking about edge rushers. Let's just talk about receivers because it's a fun position and it's a position we couldn't draft again just because we're good at it. Will we? Probably not. We have much bigger needs, but I still want to talk about it just for the fun of it. My top receiver right now is Jordan Addison. He's actually gone out there and proven it this year. Jackson Smith-Njigba, the receiver from Ohio State, dealing with injuries. Kayshon Boutte for LSU has more bad quarterback issues and has just not been very productive in the field. Quentin Johnston from TCU also not been productive. Josh Downs from North Carolina, he's been banged up and injured. Dante Demas Jr. not productive at all for Maryland. So there's a lot of concerns in this wide receiver class. The guys who I really would narrow in on, especially being a first-round pick and being someone Pittsburgh target, would be Jordan Addison, former Pittsburgh Panther, transfer to USC. He's got the Pitt connection, and you can reunite him with Kenny Pickett, who was his college quarterback in his best season. That is a connection we can go with, and we've seen our teams go out and do that. Think about Joe Burrow games or Jamar Chase. Pittsburgh could really double down here on strength of the wide receiver room if you add Jordan Addison, although he is a guy who I think I would favor as a slot receiver, but he has the ability to step outside if he need be because he is so talented. And I also think this would not be a bad move considering that I think Chase Claypool is not long for being a Pittsburgh Steeler, considering some of the questions we have about him to being able to produce, maturity concerns. I think Chase Claypool is not going to be Pittsburgh Steeler for much longer. So if we want to get another third receiver to pair with Deontay Johnson, we know it's not a contract extension. George Pickens, who looked like he got unlocked last game when Kenny Pickett came in and really started firing it to him. He had 100 yards. I mean, we know he's super talented. We've seen him make the plays both in the preseason and now in the regular season. And we can throw in Jordan Addison to that group. We still have someone on the back side like guys like Miles Boykin who's still there. We still have Calvin Allison, who we drafted this past year. There's going to be a lot of potential with this wide receiver room if we add someone like Jordan Addison. But this video has gone a lot longer than I intended it to because I do want to talk about a lot, guys. Probably going to skip the edge position because really not a ton of talent to look at in the top 10. And again, we don't really need edge considering all the other needs we have for offense and defense. But I do want to finish. So this has been a bit of me rambling, admittedly. I don't have a script for this. I just kind of do it on top of my head. That's usually how I like to do things. But anyways, guys, thank you for watching. And hopefully check out the videos I post in the next 2 days.